All right, folks, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We are going to get back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do, the usual disclaimers. And also, I gotta fix the lighting because me glowing like I'm supposed to be a celestial being, but also looking like I'm age 100. It wasn't really on my to do list today. So give me just a second. I'll be back here in just a moment. Hold on. All right, there we are, folks. So, to the disclaimers, if you're unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, you're going to find all the pertinent links right there in the description box. Please, in particular, take note of the article written by Neuroclastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics. In it, they interviewed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. The Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read that article so much. They threatened Neuroclastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Neuroclastic refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article, share on all your social media. Also included is Neuroclastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding just in case the JRC ever actually does see through with their threat. Trigger warning 1. When we discuss places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, Agape Boarding School for Boys, or any other torture centers that try to call themselves schools, camps, or what have you, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips or surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please make sure to utilize the headphones. Trigger warning 2. This channel is marked not for kids for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously, parental supervision is very much advised. Trigger warning 3. In particular, when we are dealing with places like the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, unfortunately, you have to deal with a never-ending string of gaslighting, abuse apologencia, numerous appeals to authority, and a whole bunch of other nastiness on repeat into infinity. A lot of us have to report these reports, their comments, and a lot of times that means we go over the same themes and end up a lot of times me having to repeat myself on something I had already clarified 10 billion times before, because the JRC only knows how to regurgitate the same questions and comments over and over and over again. They seem to be deathly allergic to actually answering any of the precise challenges that the FDA or really anybody else has ever issued to them, either social media, larger media, or otherwise. So just be prepared for the stupid, alright? Trigger warning 4. One of the JRC's favorite tools is to take a token case and then paint it as bleak and horrific as humanly possible. A lot of times, some of the things that they put in that report has to do with a core comorbid diagnosis. Like in yesterday's video, where they were talking about such as muscle tremors, drooling, things that are side effects of having epilepsy that somehow they put on there as a reason to put a poor kid on a shock device. So Just be prepared for that. I've gone against anti-vaxxers. I've gone against Me Too. I have gone against whatever that was supposed to be that was supporting AH. These people, their nastiness, their stupidity, and their willful hatred to anyone trying to help save those kids, I've never been able to find their parallel. So, just prepare yourselves for that, alright? Okay, where we left off yesterday. Despite these interventions and therapies, LE's aggressive behaviors worsened over time. Gee, ya fucking think so? Alright, folks, hear me out. Hear me out. If you went and got a diagnosis, and instead of getting a full functional behavioral assessment done, they first push you into early intervention. And early intervention is ABA. ABA is trying to condition your disability out of you. So we have no foundation, and we're throwing a kid into ABA. And all the special mind fuckery that comes with that. While still, nobody working with you to uncover the triggers that are causing the behavior. Would your behavior get better? Or would your behavior get worse? And you would start picking up other traits of aggression and frustration because nobody's willing to listen to you. Nobody's actually doing a damn thing to help you. And if you're a little kid, especially, and having both worked the field and been through the service system, I can promise you the level of anger and frustration and just special level full-bodied exhaustion because everybody around you is shutting you out. You're trying to tell them, hey, this is what I need help with, and nobody's listening. If you say that your behavior would still be perfect, I've got beautiful oceanfront property right in the middle of the beautiful state of Kansas with a fantastic view of the ocean. And on occasion, every February on the 2nd, the Loch Ness Monster comes for a visit. Okay? Yeah. That is what I've been saying all along. When you're saying, but the interventions and the therapies weren't working and they've tried everything, you're still somehow completely and utterly deaf to the question everybody has been asking the JRC year after year, decade after decade. Where was the full functional behavioral assessment? Why was that assessment not carried out before we even thought about trying to put the poor kid into any form of intervention? Because at that point, you don't even really know what form of intervention they're going to need or what kind of intervention would best work for them. Right? You don't know. You're just throwing the kid into ABA and saying a Hail Mary. And then you're surprised when it doesn't work. And then you're going to try to gaslight the rest of us and say, well, obviously, therapies, interventions, and nothing worked. No fucking shit. You don't say. That's what happens when you don't establish that proper foundation and get that full functional behavioral assessment done before you try to get these kids into any form of early intervention, residential programs, or community-based programs. You can't fix or help accommodate an issue that you don't know exists. Okay? Without that assessment, I mean, let me put it this way. And yes, it really is this bleak. If you skip that very vital step and you keep putting these kids from place to place to place to place, it's going to continue to fail. Behaviors are going to get worse and worse as the frustration, the rage, and I hate to say it because I have experienced it, the shame of it all becomes overwhelming. Okay? All of that, the exhaustion of the parents, the exhaustion of direct care staff, the exhaustion of all these professionals, to a point that is always going to be there. But when you have a foundation, you have something to go off of. If you do not have that foundation, how in the name of God do you expect to make any form of progress? You don't even know what's wrong. So, JRC is going to do their usual gaslighting, as we're seeing here. But it got worse and worse and worse over time in spite of the interventions, and they sent them here, they sent them there. Was there at any point in time before they got shuffled off from program to program to program where somebody stopped and said, drop everything, we need to do a full functional behavioral assessment? If you read this document so far, I'm going to wage a guess that that is probably no. You want to make sure whatever treatment program, residential or community-based program, is going to be able to best assist your child and help them to develop. You cannot skip that step. You can't just skip over it and throw them into whatever early intervention program. Okay? You can't do it because you don't know what's wrong. They don't know what's wrong. There is no foundation here. Okay? And then to try and use that as an excuse to say, but see, when we shock the living daylights out of them at just below the lethal limit multiple times a day, their aggression stop. My aggression stop when I get punched in the face, Karen. Or in my case in childhood, mainly gut and hips and ribs areas. Guess what? That is not the fault of autism, folks. That is not the fault of the child. That is the fault of the service system in the state of Massachusetts and the school districts. A lot of things could have been helped if they would have just done that assessment first before trying to push them into any early interventions or treatment programs. All that frustration, that beating your head in the wall, shipping them from program to program to program and not understanding why it isn't working, all of that exhaustion, all of those emotions, the burnout in both us and our poor goddamn parents. You just need the behavioral stuff done. All right, folks, hold on a second. I gotta knock at the door. I'll be with you here in a moment. Sorry, folks, I got Christmas exploding all around me. Packages, sorry about that. But that's my point. All of this anxiety, the anxiousness, the frustration, and the ever growing underneath anger that us autistics go through when we are being shuffled from program to program to program and nobody involving us in our own treatment program, all of this can be avoided if they would just, for the love of God, do the full functioning behavioral assessment before assessing what types of interventions or programs are best going to assist in the areas where the kid needs it the most. Because you could throw them into 100 schools. You have no foundation, it's just going to continue to be the same result. The answer will then obviously, we need to have extreme torture and abuse because they're just getting worse, is not an answer. And no matter how bleak the JRC tries to paint that picture, they will never get me to agree with their insanity. I've seen their glaring, gaping holes in not just the GED program, but in every single fucking program they have there, including the ones that are for the so-called higher functioning. Okay? Do the steps. Do the steps in order. Do not jump over a single step, because if you do, you're going to exhaust yourself. You're going to exhaust the kid. You're going to exhaust the school system, the teachers, direct care staff. Nobody's going to know what the hell is going on. And then eventually, they're going to get shipped out to a place like Agape or a place like the JRC. And what seems like a wonderful fix a few years down the line will make things hell of worse than what they had ever been previously. You can't just leave things out and expect it to work. Okay? Alright, let me continue. I'll probably bust this in half because, God. In first grade, the school separated her from the class and her peers and put her in a closet to work. Oh, for fuck's sake. This is actually a pretty controversial thing. The quiet rooms, the seclusion and restraint rooms. I'm very familiar with them. They no longer do them out here. Want to wonder why I have more than a few enemies out here? Yeah. I don't care about people's feelings. I care about those kids. And I show it. Again, putting the kid away in a room, unseen and unheard, it's not dealing with the issues. It really doesn't do anything other than continue to build resentment up in us. Okay? How people are shocked that that doesn't work is just beyond me. Mother of God, some of the people who get in this field have no common sense whatsoever. Even with this seclusion, Ellie's mother received calls to bring Ellie home when Ellie became aggressive. No shit! JRC, please explain to me, like I am a toddler, why you believe that shutting a kid out from the rest of the class and putting them in an isolated little freaking closet was somehow going to fix the issues. Please explain it to me again like I'm 3. What is that supposed to do? Well, it lets the other kids learn and then we can learn and I'm going to repeat it for the billionth time. I come out of a special level GOP hellscape of a state. Alright? I went to Rogersville. Now, instead of putting me off into a seclusion room or any other stupid idea, what the school did is they took observation notes. And then they brought me, my aunt, and I together to talk. We think there's something a little extra going on. My aunt said, yeah, I think she may have been misdiagnosed. Those teachers referred her to Burrell Behavioral Services. Right? There I was diagnosed. After that diagnosis, we were then referred to the Missouri Department of Mental Health and Developmental Disability Services. DDS. DMHDDS for short. It was there that we conducted my very first full functional behavioral assessment. It was only after that assessment had been done that any type of community-based or residential-based program, as well as treatment program, had been decided on. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong, I had my issues. I still do. Just not quite as horrifically bad as they used to be. But we avoided all of that. There was no Tiffany getting shuffled from school to school to school, day program to day program, residential to residential. None of that happened. We were able to pinpoint, based on what my needs were, and the fact that I was insistent that I had full control over the process, I can be when I put my foot down, I put my foot down, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're not going to move me. That is my personality. Sometimes that's a very good thing, sometimes it's a very bad thing, but in this case, it was a very good thing. Okay? And I gotta give my aunt props. Out of all the issues her and I have had over the years, she didn't try to wrench the reins over my own treatment program for me. That's how it's done. That is how I got to a baseline so that I'm able to interact with society. Okay? The fact that these people can't understand that isolating and othering us into oblivion is going to make the aggression worse, not subside, makes me want to reach back into the 90s and bring the stupid stamp back. Or I don't know, maybe I need to start printing and making a whole bunch of dunce caps. Give them out for free to all the direct care staff, clinicians, and everyone at the JRC while I'm at it. LE was aggressive at home as well. Her parents had to physically restrain her almost nightly. Again. And I also want to bring this up. You notice there's something a little bit vague in regards to physically restraint. When we first began talking about LE, it became very apparent that LE also has a form of epilepsy. If you ever been around an individual with epilepsy and ever helped to take care of one, you know that sometimes, in particular when they go into grand malls, you do have to physically restrain them in one way or another so that they don't cause themselves physical harm while they're going through the seizure. Right? So my question is, since I know the JRC plays fast and loose with their narratives, were they always restraining her because of the tism? Or was some of that due to the fact that this is a child with epilepsy? And sometimes some form of physical restraint, particularly during grand malls, are necessary to keep them from harming themselves involuntarily. So I'm going to go with number 2, particularly since I know the JRC tries to paint everything as autism's fault. Even when someone like me can look at the previous paragraph, see Klonopin, see Ativan, see trimmers and drooling, and I know where all of that stuff comes from. So trying to say it was just getting worse, they had to restrict her nightly, and the shock device is the only thing that works, even though we're saying clearly this child has epilepsy. You are putting a kid with epilepsy into a human shock collar. You are goddamn lucky the kid hasn't ended up dead because of your negligence and your insanity, JRC. Because I guarantee you, had you pulled that with me, my mom would own your skull. Just saying. Ellie received after-school assistance from teachers and a teacher's aide. Despite medications prescribed by Dr. Childs, Ellie continued to exhibit aggression towards others and require frequent restraint. Again! Again! As an autistic woman, let me explain a few things. Medication is there to supplement the treatment program. It is not a miraculous fix-it. Okay? In a successful program, for those of us who need that supplement, it works in concert with. So if you are taking medication, but because there was no full functional behavioral assessment, there's still no foundation, which means whatever program that kid is being put into, there's no guarantee is going to be doing jack shit to address any of the issues they need support with. You can't then use that as an argument in favor for torture. You can't. Medication is not a miraculous fix-it. It works in concert with an overall treatment program. But Tiffany, what about you? As a woman with PTSD, when the PTSD gets triggered, all the rage, anger, and shame and fear hit me upside the head like a 2x4. Okay? Hear me out here. My medication is not going to do jack shit to stop the aggressive action or the self-abusive action that's getting ready to happen. Okay? It's not going to miraculously make me no longer angry. Alright? That's not what they're there for. And don't let JRC gaslight you and tell you that. Or they try to essentially tell everyone that they give us the pills and they don't work, they just make them catatonic. No, Karen. It's how you use the medication and how well you pair it with an overall treatment program chosen off of the information that you were able to glean for the full functional behavioral assessment that makes an overall relatively successful program. Okay? You got to take the steps in order. You can't take one step and then, well, obviously, you can see why this is stupid, right? As far as continuing to exhibit aggression, we autistics, particularly from my generation, were often shut out of our own IEP meetings. We never really asked our opinions in regards to what we felt we needed to work on. Okay? And we were always talked over like we weren't even there. Right? Okay. So imagine you're one of us. You got the diagnosis. Unbeknownst to you, they have jumped over establishing a foundation. So they are kicking you from place to place to place, playing around with your medication and blaming you for these programs not working. The aggression is going to get worse. I hate to, bust your neurotypical bubbles out there. Put yourself in our place, where everybody else is trying to plan your life around you, and you're not allowed to have any kind of input. You can't even tell these folks what you think is causing the triggers. because they don't think you understand. Oh no, Tiff, you're too stupid, honey. You're special ed. You let the adults take care of this. Guess how long that flew when I came about around 13. They got a rude awakening. But if you can just hear me just remembering it, you can hear that underlying anger. You can hear that frustration. If you've got that going on for years, it shouldn't surprise anyone whatsoever that the aggression is getting worse. Right? You can sit there, nobody can manage your da 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 da. All this stuff with LE. Maybe it couldn't all have been avoided, but shit could have been made a hell of a lot easier if instead of throwing her immediately into early intervention, you got the goddamn assessment done first. So that you would know, or at least had a decent idea and could make an educated guess in regards to what kind of treatment plan and program would best address the issues of the kid. Since you all didn't do that with LE, JRC, because the parents didn't even know to do that, they got put from program to program to program, which you're not allowed to have any kind of say in your own treatment program. And you are moving an autistic, most of us who do not like change, from place to place to place. If you think that that would not make anyone more aggressive than what they would normally be, again, beachfront property in Kansas, y'all. You can buy it for a penny. Any takers? You see it through all of these documents. The giant elephant in the room that the JRC continuously never addresses, except when they but we do assess them. Yeah, we've seen that assessment. We've shown it on this channel. It's not a full functional behavioral assessment. Not even remotely. One of these days, I'm going to have to go digging in some of my older cloud stuff to see if I can pull that up and then the proper full functioning behavioral assessment sheet up so I can show the differences instead of just trying to say it. But yeah, my throat's getting dry, folks, and obviously it's getting dark out ridiculously early, so we're going to go ahead and close it out for this evening. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few we do tend to get removed from time to time. Please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to hit those comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. And as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everyone. Merry Christmas. Caesar, we who are about to die salute you. Bye-bye, everyone.